What I'm about to discuss in this video might be kind of hard for me to talk about, but now feels like the right time to talk about it, so I am. In August of 2019, I went on a trip to Mount Rainier. I've been going there every year since 2017. So, as of right now, 2023, I've gone 6 years in a row, going on 7. I have to go to Mount Rainier every year because it's one of the most stunningly beautiful places, if not the most beautiful place in the state of Washington, in my opinion. Other people might not share that opinion, but that's what I think. And yes, I have traveled the entire state of Washington. I've traveled to Oregon and California as well. So, in August of 2019, I went on my usual Mount Rainier trip for 3 days. And I wasn't by myself on this trip. There were two cousins of mine and two children who belonged to one of my cousins with me on this particular trip. And we were staying in a quaint, cozy little cabin, kind of a wooded little cabin surrounded by trees and grass and a Native American totem and a little pond right behind it. Baby deer and their mothers would occasionally come onto the grassland, the yard surrounding the cabin, and we could take pictures of them. And while we were there, we did photograph some baby deer. We photographed wildflowers on Paradise. We photographed majestic waterfalls, of which Mount Rainier has at least 3 of them. And I've taken photos of all 3. Those are the ones that I know about. I'm sure there are others I haven't seen, but they are incredible, just like everything else about Mount Rainier. The hiking trails, the forests, everything. We took a train ride to a very tiny town called Mineral, an old logging town that was used as kind of a haven for loggers during the early years of the 20th century. We saw that. We spent some time in Elbe, which is another tiny town a few miles away from the park entrance with a very small population. It's basically a blink and you'll miss it kind of place. I had an amazing time during this trip photographing all of this beauty. And I assumed that everybody who was on the trip with me, staying in the cabin with me, had an amazing time as well, but turns out I was wrong. Not everybody had an amazing time. My 2 cousins are both full-fledged white people, and me, I'm what you might call a mixed breed. I'm biracial. And I'm not as financially privileged as either of my cousins are. My average salary ranges from $24,000 to $30,000 a year, which puts me squarely in the working class. I'm not rich. I'm not living the life of Beyonce or Jay-Z or Bill Gates. I'm not financially privileged in any way, shape, or form, and my cousins are. And it wasn't until we had returned from this trip and gone back home a couple of days later that I found out exactly what one of my cousins thinks about me, and it's not good. Once we had come back from this trip, I received dozens of angry, hateful text messages from her. Classist, belittling, angry, nasty messages, lots of them, telling me that I smelled bad, that I stunk, and that she hated having to share a cabin with me because of that. Because, according to her, I snored too loudly and kept her awake all night long. And she sent me some more text messages laughing at and making fun of my financial situation, making fun of me for not being as well off as she is, making fun of me because when I was younger, for a period of time, I didn't have a place to live. She made fun of me for that as well. And I had just mistakenly assumed that we all had a great time on this trip. And after this had happened, of course, I was destroyed by it. I was devastated. And I still am. During the past 4 years, that hasn't changed. I'm still devastated by the fact that my own flesh and blood did this. I'm just doing a better job of handling it now than I did right after it happened. That's the only difference. And another reason I decided to post this is because when I was growing up, I also had people making fun of me for not being very financially well off. I had that happen to me when I was a kid. But you never expect it to happen to you as an adult. And, well, it has. More than once. Especially since I moved to a more suburban area. I've had it happen to me numerous times, but it's much more devastating when it's your own flesh and blood, your own family member doing it, as opposed to somebody you don't know very well, or even somebody you just work with, because these people aren't your blood, they're not family. And I've had that happen to me. Co-workers making me feel bad as well. And while that doesn't feel good, this feels worse. And I posted this video in the hopes that somebody might see it and be able to relate to what it feels like to be the target of a hate campaign based on your lack of class privilege, or racial privilege for that matter. Somebody might see this and be able to relate and say, yes, I've been there too.